Hello, everybody, and welcome to my latest live broadcast. Today is the 28th of October, 2021. My name is Kerry Holzman, a computer repair professional in business, repairing computers for a living for over 30 years. Today, I've got a computer in front of me that Mitch and I built back over in Studio A back in April of 2019. And this customer received the computer and has been using it ever since. But the information I'm given is that the customer moved quite a distance from their original home, packed everything up, went from one state, relocated into another state, and when they took the computer and hooked it up after the move, it wouldn't work anymore. And they said, "Hey, can I ship this back to you for repair?" And I said the same thing I always say, which is, yes, I recommend you take it to Federal Express, pay Federal Express to pack this for you and to box it for you. It'll add about $25 onto the cost, ship it FedEx ground, and since it's broken, there's no need to insure it or require a signature for where I'm located. So that way I don't have to worry about missing the delivery. Now, FedEx initially said this package would arrive in one day, which I knew was not going to be accurate. It said, hey, this package will arrive on Monday. Well, Monday, it said the package will arrive on Tuesday. And long after the expected delivery time, it was finally updated that it would arrive on Wednesday. Following that, it said it'll arrive on Thursday. So here we are. From Texas to Arizona, something that should have taken 2 days took 4 because these poor shipping companies are just getting slammed between the difficult nature in finding employees who want to work and the overwhelming demand for shipping right now and throughout the pandemic. They're buried, and I don't even know how bad this holiday season's going to get, but it's not looking promising. So with that in mind, this customer did not heed my advice. This customer reused an Amazon box. What you need to understand about shipping a computer is that the way boxes are handled by large shipping companies, especially FedEx or UPS or the United States Post Office, they're not gingerly carrying each package. They're dealing with hundreds of thousands of packages every single day, and they're just trying to get them moved quickly. So it's your responsibility to make sure that what you've packed will withstand the shipping forces that are to be assumed. And what happens if you pack it yourself and you get the insurance, likely the insurance will never pay out because they'll say you didn't pack it properly and that's what contributed to the damage. So there's no sense buying the insurance on a package unless you're paying that company to pack it for you, because then if they damage it, they can't say it wasn't packed properly. Now here the concern is it's pretty severe. The damage is pretty severe. What this customer did is they took an old Amazon box that had already been previously used, which is a single wall box, which is a big no-no. If you're shipping a computer, you never use a single wall box. That'll almost assuredly guarantee it's going to arrive with damage, in my experience. Secondly, they pretty much just put the computer in a garbage bag and then put that in the Amazon box, which was just big enough for the computer. Another big no-no. You want at least 2 to 4, well, minimum of 2 inches of space around the entire computer, front, back, sides, top, and bottom. So the box has a little give. So what this customer did is they put it in a garbage bag, which did nothing. There was no point in that. It didn't offer any protection whatsoever. They laid the computer flat, which is good, and then they put large pieces of styrofoam, not packing peanuts, which would give a little bit, but hard styrofoam, which provided, it's almost like packing it with drywall. There's no cushion there. So this was completely improperly packed in a box too small, in a box too thin, and as a result, this is what happened. So I'm upset because this was entirely avoidable, and this is something when I build a computer, I take a lot of pride in it. And as you can imagine, this is like seeing one of your children come back after getting beaten up. It kind of bothers me. It is the customer's property and the customer's choice on how they want to pack this computer and how they want to ship it. But I give them the advice for a very good reason. And this should serve as an example. We can all learn from this. I have no special arrangement with Federal Express. I don't make any commission one way or the other. My only concern is that the computer will arrive safely. And when I give the customer those directions and they follow them, this never happens. The only time this ever happens is when a customer decides they know better than me or they weren't paying attention. When I was giving them the advice, maybe they just were like, and it didn't sink in, or they just thought, that's ridiculous, that's overkill, I'll just pack this myself. Well, in doing that, and this just went from Texas to Arizona, it didn't even go that far. I want you to see the extent, like I don't even know what it's like inside yet. You're gonna experience this with me for the first time because I want to keep my reaction genuine. But I hear stuff rattling around inside, which is not good. First of all, this little clip right here, this belonged to this faceplate. And as you can see, the faceplate has been completely ripped right off. If you look at the end of the faceplate, you can see it's completely damaged here and here. And you'll see these little posts that hold the front bezel in. This post here is sheared completely off. If we go further down, there's another post here, sheared completely off. There's supposed to be clips here, sheared off, sheared off, sheared off, sheared off, sheared off, sheared off. The entire face has been ripped. Imagine someone ripping your face off. This is exactly what happened. This was a brute force. This is about as bad as I've ever seen one. It doesn't typically, I understand if you get, a couple of posts. This has one surviving post right here. Everything else is completely ruined. Now, this is the part where you might have a small heart attack. So I'm going to warn those of you with a weak heart. But there's a graphics card in here, or at least there was. Look at this front. This is secured down with 3 screws. There's a screw here, a screw here, and a screw here. And those screws are still here. So what does that mean? That means this entire front face, this part of the case, has completely sheared off all 3 secure points. There's no other way to secure this now. That's done. It's completely obliterated. Now, if you look over here, we've got a big dent right down here in this corner. We have a nice dent right here. And as we keep bringing it around, we're not done yet. There's still more damage. And maybe not. I thought there was other damage up on the top that I'm not. Oh yeah, there is. Right up here, we have damage. Again, if I turn this just so you can see it. But we've got a big crease here and here, and it even extends down here. It extends onto the base of the machine. And you can see the graphics card is in there. At least it didn't break free. But there are pieces rattling around inside of this case right now. And I don't know what the pieces are, how big they are, or how heavy they are. But my concern, of course, is that whatever pieces are moving around inside while it's shipping, those are running up against motherboard components, RAM, your video card, etc. And if that's something that has some substance to it, it can just knock things out of the socket or rip them right from the sockets. This is a significant amount of damage, especially concerning the distance. It wasn't that far of a distance. So the customer didn't pack this the way that they received it. They remember the way that this was shipped. And even if they didn't have the original box anymore, they should have at least remembered how big that box was and tried to replicate sending it back the way you received it. Or at the very least, follow my advice and they wouldn't have had to worry about it. So now, whatever this repair was, it just got worse, but I don't know how much worse. Like at this point, it looks like we're gonna have to replace the case. I don't know that I can get another one of these cases right now. If the video card's damaged, it'll cost them nearly the entire price of the computer just to get that same video card today. I'm kind of a little afraid to open it because I don't want to give the customer that news. I don't want to be in this position. I don't want to be the person that has to tell the customer, you shipped it completely wrong. You didn't follow my advice. And because you didn't do that, now whatever was wrong with this, whatever reason you shipped it to me, you've made that worse. And it's going to cost more money. And I mean, it might cost a lot more money depending on what it is that's damaged. If that video card is damaged, holy cow, that's going to be very, very expensive. So I feel really, really bad, and I feel terrible that I'm the one that has to give that news to the customer, not somebody else. I feel awful about it. I want to be the guy that you like, right? You're going to like me when I got good news. If this had been packed the way I suggested, I am sure it would not have arrived with damage, because I haven't had any really arrive with, I've had some little issues now and once in a while, but nothing this bad. This is one of the worst I've ever seen. And I'm so afraid of what I'm going to find inside. And it saddens me. It really, really makes me sad that somebody would think that you could just pack it like that. Like, I don't know what they're thinking. You can't do that. I've told you time and time again, I've told all of you, if you do that, you will almost assuredly guarantee damage. And there's like some form of delusion. There's some form of it's not going to happen to me, or I don't want to pay the extra $25. I mean, I don't know what it is, but you can understand my frustration is, how do you justify not taking my advice? How is that justifiable? And it's not costing me anything. Don't get me wrong. I'm upset that, you know, what was probably based on the customer's diagnosis, you know, their explanation of the problem, I was fairly certain this was going to be a pretty easy in and out repair. But because they didn't ship it the way I recommended, this just got way more complicated, way more time consuming, and way more expensive. And now, instead of being the bearer of good news and saying, hey, it was super easy, I'm going to send it back tomorrow, I got to be the guy that says, your computer arrived completely damaged and it was totally avoidable. All you had to do was heed my advice. And you didn't. So, you know, I'm upset that this was completely avoidable. So it's not my fault. You know, it's not my fault this happened. But, you know, if this is how it was moved from one state to another, I mean, you can't handle a computer like that. You can't handle a delicate piece of electronics like it's a brick. You know, it's not a piece of glass. You don't have to handle it as though, you know, it's going to shatter. But it does require, as I mentioned, 2 inches of packing all the way around in a double-walled box if you're going to use it for any carriers. And I know this because I've shipped a lot of computers. And it's just breaks my heart. No idea. It was completely avoidable. This is why Uncle Carey says, let FedEx ship your computer and let FedEx pack it for you. It's an extra $25. And then if this were to happen in that scenario, we could hold FedEx liable for the damage. There was no damage to the outside of the box, by the way. The box arrived in perfect condition, and that's one of the measurements they use when determining insurance liability was, you know, if there's obvious damage to the box, they will typically honor the insurance. But if there's no damage to the box, that's an indication that it was packed improperly. But if they're the ones who did the packing, then they're still liable even if there's no damage to the box on an insurance claim. So anyway, should we open it? A couple of contributions have come in. Patrick Rousseau, wait, I missed a couple. Let me go back up. David A. in Canada with $2 Canadian says, what is your favorite drink? I've been drinking a lot of Gatorade. So I guess Gatorade. Patrick Rousseau with $5 says, it depends on how it's packed, whether it's going 50 miles or 2,500 miles. will determine the safety of the item being shipped, not for the distance being shipped. Well, Patrick, I can tell you I have probably shipped more computers than you have, and I can tell you whether I am shipping it to a neighboring state or across the country, the way I pack it is the same. If you pack it right, the distance doesn't matter. In fact, the computer that was shipped to Australia was also packed exactly the same way that I ship all other computers, and it arrived with absolutely no issues, as the vast majority of computers I ship do. Every once in a while, I still get a little something, but it's usually very, very minor. Nothing that's ever had to be sent back. Michael Dane with $5 says, over the past 4 weeks, I've donated my time to upgrade and update 10 computers for a private school in my area and made them with 6th generation i5 CPUs and 8 gigs of RAM. Right on, Michael. That's why Michael is the man. Michael, thank you for your contribution, both to your community and to this community. Patrick, thank you for your contribution. And of course, David there in Canada, thank you as well. There's another one here from Joshua Robinson contributing $10. Appreciate that, Joshua. And is there one more? Yeah, David A. again with $2. What's my opinion on Windows 11? It's too early. I would not be an early adopter. If you ask me my opinion on the 12th generation Alder Lake CPUs, any technology that is not released or has been recently released, I don't recommend you be the first. If you want to be the first, you will pay the most and you will suffer the growing pains of newborn technology. So my opinion on Windows 11 is quite simple. When and if Windows 11 offers to do something that you need to do that you cannot do with Windows 10, it would make sense to install it. But why would you install it today? And why would you take something that's a couple weeks old and then rely on it and depend on it? You'd have to be very bored or a hobbyist that doesn't have a mission critical machine. It's extraordinarily risky. I advise you not to install it unless you have a reason to do so that's worth the risk. If you don't heed my advice, don't ask me for help when you get in a situation. I've already received several emails from people. Oh, my computer said it was ready for Windows 11 and I went to put it on and it didn't work, and I went to revert back and it won't revert back, and now Windows 10 won't reinstall. What do? I go, I don't know. I advise you not to do it. So I said, if you don't take my advice and you install Windows 11 anyway, whatever problems that amounts from that, you're on your own. That's the decision you made. And none of the people that have done this are people that have supported the channel anyway, right? They're asking for free help and they didn't even accept the free help that said not to install it. So they've already shown they don't listen. So I don't, it's one thing if you're a customer, it's another thing if you're just a viewer and you're not a supporter viewer, to reach out to me like I'm technical support. It starts to get old real quick. There are companies that you can get tech support from, but you'll be paying for it. And you willingly decided to go down that path, and then you got yourself in trouble. Well, getting yourself in trouble is what comes with that risk. That's your failure. It's not mine. And you're going to have to dig yourself out of that one or find somebody else to help you, because you should have never gone down that path. If you'd followed what I said, you'd have never been in that position. So if you install it and everything's great, well, that's good. And if you install it and things go haywire, find help elsewhere. Because for me, it's unjustifiable to install Windows 11 and to absorb that risk, and then to take time out of my day because of bad judgment on your part. So accept responsibilities for your actions. But thank you again for the contribution. And whether or not you choose to install Windows 11, I really don't care. Unless you're a customer. Rick Lakes with a $10 contribution says, good afternoon, Carrie and chat. Hey, Rick, welcome in. Here's David Officer with a $5 Canadian contribution. Said, looking forward to the 12th gen Intel processors. Yeah, you sit down for the DDR5 prices. What else? Colin Hunt with a £5 contribution. Hey, Colin, thank you so much as well. Again, thank you, David, both Davids and Rick Lakes, for your support. I appreciate it. So, yeah, this should get interesting. I think what I'll do, let me see if I can get camera 2 a little bit closer on the case so when I take it apart for the very first time, you get a good look at what's in there. Let's go to camera 2, which is right here, so that's my close-up camera. Let me just step over here and be a cameraman for a second, and I will bring this down over here like this, and we can take a look at what's going on in here, which is, like I said, I've got some reservations about this whole situation. However, you know what? We can do both cameras. I think if I maybe put camera 1. Where should I put it? We'll put it right up there, I guess. Okay. I hope all I'm hearing rattling around in here are the plastic bits that broke off of the faceplate. I hope that's all I'm hearing. I am okay. Just preparing myself. Stand over here. All right. It's a big graphics card. This broke free. That completely broke free. There's usually screws that hold that in. Wonder what happened to the screws. Now, I don't immediately see any damage. Okay, the RAM is still seated. The fan hasn't been pulled off. The heatsink hasn't been pulled off. The graphics card hasn't been yanked out. And the cables are good and tight here, which is why we do the cable management. But there is a lot of rattling happening inside. So I'm going to just grab this and tip it and see what falls out. Well, there's a piece right there that just fell out. Whatever that is. Let's keep going. I know there's a bunch of little pieces in here. There's another piece that fell out. I heard it. I don't know where it went. I guess it's this piece right here. We can just start putting the pieces up here. 1, 2, 3. Let's keep going. Wow. Okay. I need to turn the filter off on the microphone so you can hear what I'm hearing. It sounds like a rain stick. I'm going to turn all these filters off, all right? So well, you know what? I'll just turn noise suppression off. So you're probably going to hear a lot of background now. But I want you to hear when I turn this upside down, because I think my noise suppression was blocking it. Oh, there's more pieces. So there's a piece of metal. Something fell on the floor. There's another piece. Another piece. Another piece just came out. Here's all of our pieces so far. I think there's pieces back here, so I'm going to take this other panel off. Yeah. Yep. There's This is the piece that holds the graphics card in on the PCIe slot. Now that may not be broken, that may just have to snap back in. Let's hope, or the motherboard's damaged. What else do we have going on in here? Yeah, that's completely busted off. Oh boy. This is not good. This is definitely not good. There's no way for any pieces to have gotten caught up in the power supply. That's why the fan faces down. If the power supply were installed with the fan facing up, then it would be possible for stuff to drop in, which is just another good reason to put your power supply in with the fan down. Because that sort of thing can happen even while you're building. If the power supply with the fan up, you drop a screw, it's very dangerous if you don't get that screw out of there. It's 120 volts inside of that thing, and if it shorts out, it's going to be a big, big firework. Probably a loud bang, maybe smoke, maybe fire. This is just really troublesome. I'm going to remove this optical drive from here. There it is. Okay, so whatever that piece of metal was looked like it came from back here. Something busted that clear through. And I'm not sure what that was. But that's been, whatever was here has been sheared off. That little piece of metal right down here, there's a little, like a little, it's so little it's hard to hold. Here's another plastic piece to go with our group. But this little piece right here is a little piece of metal. There it is. And I believe that was part of whatever this was right here. That's been sheared off. I have no idea how that happened. That's a new one. So all of these pieces, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 pieces of busted off. Combined with 3's 3, that's 12 busted pieces. And then on the back side of the bezel, there's no way for me to reattach this bezel or to reattach this in any secure way. I mean, I suppose you could get some glue and sort of MacGyver it, but if you just glue it and ship it, it's probably just going to break, because I don't think glue is going to be strong enough. And further, glue would make any sort of upgrade or replacement, we would take that right off the table, right? It would prevent any sort of replacement. So the bezel and this piece can be ordered, but there's even, well, you can see this piece busted off and it's scraped along here. And it's pretty bad. It's pretty bad. All right, let's leave that there for right now. I'm going to turn this off for a moment. We might come back to this other camera. I had set this portable camera up, but I don't think we're going to use it just yet. All right, let me go back to full screen on camera 1. Paul says, to me, if the box was not damaged, then the damage was done before it was shipped. So yes, I suppose if you've never worked in shipping and you don't know much about shipping, that your lack of education and experience would lead you to this completely imaginative conclusion, which is nothing at all that matches reality. Whether or not there's damage to the box has nothing to do with whether or not there's damage inside the box. For example, I could send you a box of dinner plates, and you could have that box arrive in pristine condition, and I will have packed the dinner plates, let's say I could have filmed it showing you I'm putting complete undamaged dinner plates in the box. You open the box, everything in the box is shattered into smithereens, could be even powdered, right? Just completely pieces rubbing up against each other in the shipping process over the bumps on the road, unloading off of one truck, loading onto another, it's shifting, it's bumping, and everything's just breaking apart and slamming against each other. But the box is in great shape. That's why there are shipping tests for any manufacturer of computers, depending on who their shipper is. They would give them a sample box, for example, with a computer in it, if we were shipping computers. And then that shipping company would run it through their shipping test to see if your box and packing withstands what would be considered a simulation of what can occur in shipping through normal shipping processes. And we went through this at a company I worked for back in the 1991. And what we got back was jaw-dropping, the damage that was done. And there was no damage on the outside of the box. And there was no damage on the computer when we put it in. But once we got it back then we had a drive cage. The drive cage only had one screw holding it in. That screw sheared off. That freed out the drive cage from the rest of the computer case. And for the remainder of the shipping test, that drive in the drive cage with a drive in it bounced around inside of the computer and pretty much sheared capacitors right off the board, ripped the RAM right out of its sockets, completely demolished the heatsink. Everything was completely wiped out because of one screw. And we did that process to verify that we had adequate protection in the packing, and to see what we can do as far as it was our own case, that we could, I think we went to 2 screws or a different latching mechanism on the hard drive cage. And of course the hard drive was completely destroyed, right? I mean, it still looked the same, but it wouldn't work anymore. And it was a very expensive test. So the damages here have nothing to do with damage to the box. This is where packing gets involved. And as I mentioned, when there's no damage to the box, it's very difficult to have an insurance claim because the default is you didn't pack it well enough. But if you pay them to pack it for you, they no longer have that excuse. So I don't believe this computer was, I don't believe the customer lied to me, okay? I absolutely, customer, just like every customer, they're, good people, well-intended, giving me the information they have as best as they understand, with regards to any computer issues. And I believe that if the customer had significant case damage, they would have mentioned it to me. We would have discussed, hey, maybe you can get me a new case. That discussion never happened. That was never part of the symptom. I believe that there wasn't any of this damage until it was shipped. And I believe it's not FedEx's fault. I believe the customer's at fault here for inadequate packing and for ignoring my advice. So, look, I'm not out to punish anybody. I'm just upset because this whole thing could have been simple. This could have been faster, easier, and less expensive. And now it just got, he's going to need a new case, which, as I mentioned, there was no mention of that prior. Will he need a new video card? Will he need a new motherboard, RAM, NVMe drive, power supply? I don't know yet. I don't even know what, we haven't even plugged it in to see what happens. So I guess I'll do that now, because that's typically the first step, right? If I want to help you and we want to do this cheap and fast, but get it right and do it right the first time, so it's fixed for good. Typically on a repair, I'd get the computer, or the computer is shipped to me. When I unbox it, or when I bring it here, I immediately start working on it. But now I can't start working on it until I've assessed all the damage that's accrued, which is postponing the repair And as I'm, looking at where the damage is, I'm in my head, I'm thinking about how am I going to do this? What am I going to tell the customer? Am I going to, are we going to try and get a new front bezel and just keep this case the way it is and get a new, and how long is that going to take? And does Corsair have them available? It's not a warranty issue. And for what it's going to cost, it might be cheaper and faster to get a whole new case. But then that's adding a ton of labor on for me, because that means whatever the repair is, all these parts have to come out, and all the cable management gets undone, and it's a whole brand new build in a new case. And it's probably going to triple or quadruple whatever this repair cost was going to be. It's certainly going to quadruple the amount of time it would have taken. This just added a whole bunch of time. And of course, money. And we just don't know the extent of that yet because I haven't replicated the symptom. So the symptom was, it was working great ever since I've had it. I left, California, moved to Texas, something like that. When I got to Texas, it won't work anymore. It turns on, the fans spin, and nothing happens. Can I send it to you? So here we are. So in order for me to test this, I'm going to need, let's see, we need a keyboard and mouse, we need an HDMI cable, we need a power cable. All right, I've got that stuff down here on the floor, but it's kind of tangled up, so give me just a second to untangle. I don't know, man. I don't know what else to say. I warn and I warn and I warn. And it's like what? I just don't understand why somebody wouldn't take my warning seriously. I'm just having a hard time understanding why somebody made that decision to pack it themselves and reuse a box from Amazon. And if they'd have told me they were doing it, I'd say don't send it to me, because I can tell you right now it's unlikely ever going to arrive in one piece. I would have warned them. If they said, oh, I'm not going to do that, I'm just going to put it in a regular old Amazon box and I'll pack it myself, I'd say, listen, you pack it yourself, don't even bother shipping it to me unless you're expecting to ship me a box of loose parts, because things are going to break. I can almost assuredly guarantee it. And you can imagine if this was going further than just Arizona and Texas, if this was traveling thousands of miles, the damage would just keep exponentially getting worse the longer it gets bumped around. And it's sort of like somebody needs heart surgery, but before the heart surgery, they want to eat 4 pounds of bacon. It's like, my job's hard enough. Mostly, I just feel bad for the customer. I just feel bad that they were given information, they ignored it for some reason, and now this is going to take more time and money. And I just feel really, really bad about that. I wish they didn't do that. I wish we could go back in time, and I can just make it super, super clear to the customer, even have them sign an agreement that if you do not follow the advice I'm offering you, you are jeopardizing the extent of what it's going to cost and how much time it's going to take to fix this, and I want you to sign that you acknowledge that. Because then if you still do it anyway, you really understand the gravity of what I've been telling you. So this is not pretty. And I feel horrible for this customer. I feel horrible they had a bad situation and they just made it worse. And I'm frustrated because I warned them. I gave them specific instructions, and all right, well, anyway, it's not my fault. I don't know what else I could have done. All right, let's see what happens when we turn it on. Fans all spin. Let's go over to my HDMI input. So this is what he was describing, which was the computer comes on and the fans all spin, but nothing happens. Now the machine just shut itself off and turned itself back on. That's interesting. So the first thing I want to do on this, we'll go over to a close-up camera here. I'm going to step around and I'm going to turn the power off at the power supply. Give it just a second here. And we're going to take this RAM out. Okay. And I'm going to just put one RAM module back in here. It is awfully loose. Doesn't feel like that's going in at all. Oh, I see. I thought that other side didn't open, but it does open, so do this again. That back in like that. Other side up. We'll leave it like that for right now and then turn this back on and see what it does. It's not good. Not good. Still have no signal here. We'll give it just a minute. That looks like it just shut off. Or it fell out of the box and was put back in and retaped? Well, no, because then the wrap it was in would have been marred in some way, shape, or form. And also, the way it was packed, you can tell somebody didn't put it back in. It clearly didn't fall out of the box. Pretty certain of that. You do have a very creative imagination. But no, it doesn't match anything you're talking about doesn't match any likely reality I've ever experienced in my life. It seems like it's like you're really creative and imaginative. It is exactly, more than likely, it is exactly what I say it is, and I don't know why you're questioning it. It wasn't packed properly, and it never fell out of the box. There's no damage to the box. And in any further discussion of that, I don't want to engage because at that point you're just not listening. But you can have a creative imagination, that's all well and good, but in business, I have to stick to reality. And unless you can have any evidence to justify anything other than that, this happens far too often. It's very common where an improper packing of electronic items results in the damage inside the box with no damage to the box. Period. End of story. It's always been that way. Like I said, I shared that story from 1991 when we did our UPS testing, and that was the first time I encountered that, and I've encountered it countless times ever since, unfortunately. So I think we might have something more video card or video related. So I'm going to try and maybe remove and reseat that card just to see. Maybe we have built-in video on this. I think we do. Generally, if an item were to fall out of the box, especially a big heavy item like this, you'll see the flaps on the box have been bent or distorted. They don't just have a clean open unless somebody cut it open. It would tear open. And if it tore the tape and it didn't tear the box, the flaps on the box would be bent. And the flaps on this box are perfect. There's nothing going on there. So yeah, it didn't fall out of the box. I can pretty much guarantee that. There's no forensic evidence that supports that. But we're living in a world right now where people think their imagination just makes things possible. But it's great if you're an artist. But you know, sometimes it's the simplest excuse. It's the most ancient of reasons. You know, and it's just the same thing repeating itself over and over and over again. So this kind of problem, as I mentioned, very familiar with it. It's not uncommon when things aren't packed properly. And I'm sure I have videos where I've unboxed computers that were not packed properly. I can't tell you what they are right now off the top of my head. This is not the first one. It won't be the last one. As long as people continue to exhibit that same disregard for the packing advice, we're going to continue to see this. And any imagination regarding what else could have caused it is nothing more than overcomplicating and overthinking something incredibly simple and obvious. So, I'm going to try and put this little plastic piece back on that holds the graphics card in place. I think it just popped out. Yeah, so we're okay there. I've seen that happen before, obviously. And now I want to try and reseat this and secure it back in. Okay, there's that. And there's that one. Okay, we're good here. Everything looks good there. And I'll plug the video back in one more time, see if we have any better luck here. Let's see what this is. Seems to be getting stuck on a RAM-related issue. So I'm going to move this RAM module, take this one out and put this one in. Okay, that looks good. Turn it back on. You'll notice I always flip the switch off on the power supply before I remove any components. Okay, things are starting to move Now initializing VGA, it just turned itself off. So we're back over to VGA. No, we're back over to boot. There's 4 LEDs, boot, VGA, CPU, and DRAM on the bottom right corner of the board. And it's cycling power. There it goes, it's starting to work. So again, I can't stress this enough, what was probably a very easy fix, that if this would have been packed properly, I'd be done. I'd say, hey, I got the problem resolved, looks like RAM module might have come loose or something, not exactly sure, but it's good to go, and I'll box it up and get it shipped out to you tomorrow. I can't make that call now. Now the call is, well, I've got it working, but the case is in pieces, and now we're going to have to talk about how we want to proceed, and it's effectively going to mean just a ton of work for me, right? I've got to completely dismantle this entire thing, acquire a new case, reassemble it, and recable manage it, and then take it over to FedEx, pay FedEx to package it for you and box it for you. We potentially could get the front bezel and the front control unit from Corsair, but I don't know at what cost or even if they're available with the pandemic. I just don't know. No idea. So it's a good news, bad news. You know, the good news is there doesn't appear to be any damage to the components. The damage appears to be purely related to the case. However, you know, having a dented case is one thing, but having the front bezel completely sheared off along with the front panel umbilicals, they're just completely sheared off. So even just replacing that is an entire recable management of the whole thing again. So anyway, I'm kind of bummed out. I figured it was going to be something easy, and it was. So what are you going to do? If this is all I had to do, you know, if this was all I had going on in my life, I guess it's something to do, right? But behind this computer are 17 others waiting for my time, and then there are people waiting for me to give them a green light to send me their stuff. And I have one more computer coming, and I'm right now, because of this, I have to shut down all future work and tell people, I'm sorry, you can't send me anything right now. I'm going to be busy for a while trying to get caught up now. Which I don't like being in that position. I wish there was somebody I could pass this to and say, hey, dismantle this whole piece and move everything to this other case so I can go work on this other thing. But the reason, you know, that I hear from my customers, that the reason they're sending it to me is they want me to do the work. I am the one they're trusting on it. And if I was them, I would probably feel the same way. I don't want somebody else working on it. Otherwise, I'd hire somebody locally. I wouldn't have shipped it to you. So each person, you know, is going to require whatever time it requires to get it right, and I'm the only one that is going to do it. And when a job, you know, it becomes a bigger job, it means other jobs that were waiting are going to have to wait longer. But, you know, it is what it is. It's part of what I do for a living. But this was completely avoidable and unnecessary. It was just, doesn't make any sense why this decision was made to pack it themselves. This would not have happened. This wouldn't have happened. Like I said, if they'd have just, I don't know. I guess I've said it a million times, but you know, I did everything I could. I already foresaw this. You understand? I already knew this was going to happen. I told the customer, this is what's going to happen. And then the customer heard that and did it anyway. So, you know, it's frustrating to be in a situation where you can let somebody know of something upcoming, change your path, or you're going to get in the way of that car, and they don't listen. and they get in the way of the car, and you have to sit there and watch this horrific thing, or you watch something that's bad get worse. It's I just don't understand why somebody would do that. But it is, you know, it is what it is. I just have some work ahead of me now. This should have been an in and out. The reason I accepted it was based on the symptom. I figured this was going to be an in and out. And it would have been. Exactly everything as I predicted it. It was going to be an easy repair. If you ship it yourself, it's probably going to arrive with damage, the extent of which we won't know, but that's what's going to happen. And everything I predicted happened exactly the way I predicted it. It's not because I can see the future. It's because it's a wheel. And it goes around and around and around. And here we go again. Here we go again. Here we go again. Here we go again. So this happened again. You know what I mean? After 30 years of doing this, you just see the same things over and over. So I use that experience and I share that with you. And I share that with my customers so they don't have to have that experience. But when they just dismiss it, they're forcing me to deal with this cycle. And if I would have known that, I wouldn't have agreed to it. Or I would have had certain stipulations, like you're going to expect this to cost you a lot more money if you're going to do that, and it's going to take more time. I mean, if you're going to do that, you might as well find somebody local and take your chances, because somebody local wouldn't likely damage your case. Okay. I just don't know what else I could have done to prevent this. However, it comes with the territory. Customers are going to do whatever they want to do, and the customer is the one that's going to get the bill. And the sadness I have for my artwork being, this is my art. This is what I do, and to see my art just destroyed like this kind of makes me sad. I think about all the care I took and how I built it, and the cable management, and how everything had to be just so, and I had to pack it just so it would arrive for a good customer experience. And not even 2 years later, this is what comes back to me. But it's not mine anymore, I sold it. Still kind of bothers me. But we can make it better than it ever was. We can turn these lemons into lemonade, but it's going to just cost a little bit more money and take a little bit more time, and everybody else is going to have to wait a little bit longer or take their business somewhere else because there's just one of me. And yeah, I'm just a little sad. But anyway, does anybody have any questions? Aaron says, why couldn't the customer do the simple no boot tests? Why are you assuming the customer didn't? That's what I don't understand. Why do people in the chat room ask questions based on false conclusions without verifying information before making accusations? That's concerning to me as well. It's a behavior I'm seeing over and over and over again. If you would like some questions for clarity before you want to make your assertion or your accusation, and then base it on the answer, then that would make more sense to me. But just filling in the blanks with your imagination and making assumptions, you're way off the path of where we are. Hey, there's Marty in the chat room with a $50 contribution. It says, how are you? Hi, Marty. Thank you so much. I appreciate that very much. I had a vision of how today was going to go. This is not it, so I'm adjusting and rescheduling in my head what I was going to do And right now in my head, I'm rescheduling in order to how I accommodate this situation here. So that's why I just don't have any direct answers right now for some other upcoming projects. I will soon, I just don't have it right this instant. This is all new information and I'm sort of processing. I'm thinking about what cases we could do, or if we can get the front bezel on the control board and how long that's going to take and what it's going to cost and what's that compared to another case, and as far as cost and getting it out faster. Just going through all the options in my head right now. And I wasn't prepared for that. Tom says it had to be handled very poor and also it had to be dropped. Tom, regardless, it should be able to survive that. If it's packed properly, that wouldn't be an issue. As I mentioned, I have shipped computers. I don't know how many computers I've shipped. Just look at the history of my videos and you'll get to see about 1/10 of them. And this kind of damage doesn't happen unless it's not properly packed. This isn't a problem with FedEx. This is a problem by simply not really understanding what is a normal shipping process, and that's why the packing is so critical. When Master Singleton wants to know, when you ship with FedEx, how much do you put in terms of shipping insurance for computers? The shipping insurance would be the value of the computer, the cost of parts. Whatever it would cost to replace that computer is the insurance I put on the, yeah. Another chat member said that front panel is a discontinued part. I just looked into it. The customer has to keep it or buy a new case. Maybe. I mean, I appreciate the information, though, until I verify that myself. I'll still have to verify that myself, unfortunately. A stranger on the internet giving me information with no link to verifying it from a reputable source is just kind of like noise. You might be right, and I don't mean to be disrespectful, but I don't know who you are, and I don't know that you're looking at the right thing or you're looking in the right place, or that you have the same contacts I have. So that may be very well the case. I don't know yet, but that's, again, maybe something I have to look into depending on how the customer wants to respond to this situation. Gray wants to know if I should try booting with both RAM sticks. I'm not concerned at this point. What I was trying to do was get the machine to boot. Once the machine boots, then I know there's no problem with the power supply. There's no problem with the motherboard. There's no problem with the CPU. There's no problem with the cooler. There's no problem with the fans. There's no problem with the storage. I have isolated it down to the RAM. Now, could it be a damaged socket? It's possible. But that's very minor little stuff. I really don't care. The RAM has a lifetime warranty if the RAM is bad. I don't believe it is. I think it just, based on the symptom of, hey, we took it from here and we moved it to another state, it sounds like that's something that came loose. And we had that discussion before it was shipped. Anthony says, I built a computer for a customer. They didn't get a GPU. They want to use 2 monitors. Any recommendations on how I can do this? Any Intel-based motherboard with an integrated graphics chip, an IGP on the CPU. So basically pretty much every i5 or i7 or i9 that doesn't have an F on it. Just look at the back of the board. If the board has, like a display port, HDMI, you can hook 2 monitors. Or if it's got, VGI, DVA, it depends on the motherboard, the number of outputs it has. And then, of course, you can always do like a USB video. I wouldn't recommend it, but like a Type-C connector. Anyway, I would just look at the board. The Intel IGPs, they'll support 2 monitors super easy. You just got to make sure the motherboard has the connections. We do that all the time in businesses. That's standard practice. Albert wants to know, I was just wondering if you had a case that is similar, maybe you could offer the customer the parts off of it for a payment. You could later get the parts from Corsair if possible. That's far too labor intensive. Why would I take two cases, one that's in perfect condition and one that's not in perfect condition, and make the one not in perfect condition, and the one that's not in perfect condition, put it in imperfect condition, and then charge the customer for the labor to switch that all out, versus just moving the parts. Yeah, this doesn't make any sense. Like, I guess if you wanted to spend even more time, and in my opinion, completely waste your time, it'd be like, why don't I just pick up this one rock and walk a mile up the hill, then I'll come back down and pick up the other rock. Why don't you just carry both at the same time? So for that, that doesn't seem to make any sense to me, so I would never even offer that. That's just creating more work. Hey there's the owner of the computer. There's the owner of the computer in the chat. I don't know why he's not blue, but he's in there as Chavo. Hello, Carrie. The whole debacle is entirely my fault. You can do with the computer anything you deemed worth it. It has been declared a total loss. I wouldn't declare it a total loss. The graphics card itself is worth a chunk of change. The internals seem fine. It's just the case that holds it all together. So it's a labor issue at this point. My concern, the way it arrived, was of course if there was any damage to the components, and there doesn't appear to be. With my primary concern is your graphics card. Again, the graphics card, if it was damaged, I'd probably be with you on saying it's a total loss. I wouldn't. This is far from a total loss. It's just going to require a rebuild, right? We're going to have to take it all out and put it all back together again in something else. And that's unfortunate because had it been shipped properly, I could take it back to FedEx tonight and turn it right around to you. But for obvious reasons, I can't do that now. So this adds some delay. It's going to add the cost of a case. And then, again, how we react to these things, we can turn a bad situation into a good one by maybe there's another case you've always wanted, or maybe there's a case that you find more attractive than this. Now you have an excuse to get it, And when you get the computer back with a new case, it's going to feel and look like a brand new computer because that's the part that you interact with. So it's nowhere near a total write-off. It's going to require some time, and it's going to be just like building a whole new computer again. That's all. We're going to take everything out, move it into another case, put it all back together again, redo the cable management. It should be fine, based on what I'm seeing right now. I'm just sorry we have to go through all of that when it just could have been an easy fix and return it. That's all. You understand what I'm saying? Like, I don't think it's... My fear was that there was some damage inside that would make it difficult to justify the cost of repairing. But like literally any of these components in here, if there was an individual component, would be easier to switch out than it would be to take everything out and move it into another case. Now that's not rocket science, it's not a big deal, it's a bit time consuming, and like I said, you can sort of turn this into an opportunity by upgrading your case to something nicer or something that you prefer. Carrie, what case are you thinking of using? I have to talk to the customer about what they want. Somebody was a troll? I guess I didn't see him. I appreciate you guys taking care of that so I don't have to get triggered by people. So, Ben Shaw with a 50-pound contribution asks, if I upgrade my gaming laptop with another stick of RAM, 8 gigs, will it improve my gaming performance? It would depend on the game, the laptop, the CPU. In other words, when I say the laptop, what CPU does it have? What chipset does it have? What graphics card does it have? How much RAM do you have now? What game do you play under what settings? I don't know. I just don't know. Under all of those variables, it could make a difference. And if those variables are answered in a different way, then the answer would be no. I think for the cost of 8 gigs of RAM, you risk it if it's worth it to you. You know, you may have some games that play faster, other games that don't, or maybe they'll all play faster, or maybe they won't make any difference at all. It depends on what your definition of faster is. It also depends on the game, whether it's more RAM intensive or CPU intensive or GPU intensive. It also depends on the settings you put in the game, and it also depends on the graphics card you have and the CPU you have. So all of that determines whether or not your answer will be yes or no. And since I don't have any of that information, I can't honestly tell you one way or the other. But I can say 8 gigs of RAM is relatively inexpensive and relatively easy to install, so it's not a big risk. You know, if you were to install it and you spend the money and it doesn't make a difference, it shouldn't have caused anything bad to happen. Shouldn't have made anything worse. And then you just try it and see. And then you can come back and let us know. Madi UL contributes again, $10. Madi, thank you again. I wish I would have seen you unbox it. Not a whole lot to see. It looked fine in the box. There was nothing in the box. It was just laying flat. It had some hard pieces of styrofoam, a couple of sheets of it, below it and above it. And then it was wrapped, it was laying down in a trash bag, sandwiched between some sheets of hard styrofoam. That was it, in a used Amazon single wall box. So it didn't have adequate protection all the way around it. And the protection it did have was not forgiving. So I didn't know there was damage to it. In other words, when I opened the box looks fine. The styrofoam's not all torn up. And I can't see the computer because it's in a trash bag, but I can hear, when I take it out, I hear all these little bits moving around inside, and I know I'm in trouble. I know something severe has happened, because I wasn't just hearing one bit. I was hearing countless bits. It sounded like there was sand inside of it. And then when I cut the garbage bag to get at it, and the faceplate immediately fell to the ground, and a piece of the faceplate fell off, or had broken off and fell out, I should say. And then and the rest was just putting it up here on the counter and starting this video, and then that's where you guys start in. You didn't miss much, really. Free case. Yeah, that's about right. It's about what you'll get for free. Larry says, if you have all the plastic pieces that got broken off, send it all to me. I have a product that I can fix it with. I mean, I suppose there's nothing to lose, but the cost of shipping this case to you and for you to ship it back so the case, you have to understand, it's not the weight of the shipping that costs a lot of money. It's the size of the box. It's, the room it's taking up on the truck is a big price of shipping. So while that's a nice offer, if you were my neighbor, or if you were close or local, that'd be fine. But to ship it to California, it's going to run me probably about the price of the case. And once you have it, and if you, assuming you did the work completely for free and sent it back, and I found the work to be acceptable, which we'll assume all of that, it's another $60 to send it back. Once I have it, I can put everything back in it again, because I still have to take everything out in order to reduce the shipping and reduce the likelihood of further damage to any of the components. And the customer's now waiting upwards of a month or more to get their machine back. So it's just not, it would be a practical solution if you were nearby, if you were local for me, but I appreciate the offer, but that's just not practical, unfortunately. You know, if it's a $500 case, it'd be a different story. William wants to know what I think of the Pixel 6. I'm not familiar with it. I'm not an Apple iPhone user. I stick pretty much to Samsung Galaxy phones and Kindle for a tablet, and that's pretty much the extent of it. So if you had a question about any of the Samsung Galaxy phones, I might have an opinion, but anything outside of that I don't have any hands-on experience with, and therefore I don't have an opinion. If the customer chooses a new case, is that one still salvageable? I don't think this is. Again, I'd have to get on the phone with Corsair. If I can get the front bezel and if I can get this front piece. If I can't, you have to understand this is this case ran somewhere between $55 to $70, brand new, 2 years ago. Or somewhere, depending on what I paid for it, it was probably $55, $59, $64.99, right in there. It probably wasn't any more than that. So the question is it worth putting, you know, how much money is it worth putting into a $60 case versus just buying another $60 case and then not having to wait? I can order a $60 case off Amazon and have it here in 2 days with free shipping. Or I can get on the horn, wait on hold, or send an email to Corsair, go through the steps and serial numbers and product description and issues I have, and then it's not a warranty issue, so if they'll sell me the parts, how much are the parts, when will they send them out? And then you hope through putting all those parts together, there's no other surprises, that everything still sits flat, you know, nothing's been warped. It looks okay. I think that those two pieces, if they were replaced, we return the case back to close to normal, but the dents are still there. They're not major, but they, you know, shouldn't be there, but they're not hurting anything, and they're just an eyesore. And the dents would forever remain. So even if you spent the money and took the time, you're still not getting a new case. And, you know, what's the point? Baird wants to know, what, if anything, can you do to prevent this in the future? I would never wish this on anyone. A distorted case is just so sad. I don't know what else I mean, you tell me. I told him, it's written in an email. There's no question or doubt what I wrote. If you're going to send it, please follow these steps. I did what I could do. So the point of making the video and showing it is my hopes that if any of you who are watching this video are ever going to send me a computer, you understand that if you don't follow my advice on packing it, this could happen. And if it happens, it could complicate your repair. It could make it more time consuming, and it could make it cost more money. And that's an individual's decision. It's not my decision to make. I'm just trying to make it easy, right? I'm trying to say, look, we can make this a pretty painless process if you follow these steps. If you don't follow the steps, I can't guarantee or reassure that the process will be as painless. Maybe, maybe not. However, if FedEx had packed this and it had arrived this way, this would be an insurance claim for FedEx, and they'd be hard-pressed to not honor that claim. So and I'm convinced if FedEx did pack this, it wouldn't have arrived this way, because nothing I've shipped that I've allowed FedEx to pack has ever arrived like this. You watch my videos, you watch my repairs, you watch the unboxings of the machines I get, and there's been, probably 4 or 5 of them where I told you right from the get-go, out of the box it looks bad, wasn't packed right. And I hope if I keep showing these videos, people will see them. And they'll say, hey, I don't want my computer to arrive like that. What do I have to do to avoid it? Okay, well, like I've been saying, take the box to FedEx. You can just take the tower. Just take it to FedEx. Say, hey, I need you to pack this and ship it for me. It's $25. That's all it is. And they'll take care of it. They know what they're doing. They do this all the time. Perry. Trying to pronounce your last name, Perry H. has contributed $4.99. Thank you, Perry. See Photo Ray's in the chat. Hey, Photo Ray. Sherry McFarland's joining us. Welcome in, guys. Matt wants to know, are Mitch and I doing a video tomorrow? Mitch and I do a video every Friday at 1 o'clock, so yes. Joe says, Carrie, I have 4 Corsair 750D cases. Is that case the 750D? I have spare front panels. It's kind of you, Joe. This is a 200R. The case you see me use more than any other case on this channel over the last 8 years. It's been this case. I think I might have used a 750D 2 or 3 times in the past, but this is sort of a staple of the builds I make for my clients. The price of it, the ease of working with it, the expansion of it. So a 750 front isn't going to fit on that, unfortunately. And again, the cost of shipping stuff like that, you can go and buy a 750 for what? $80 maybe? JS wants to know, any new Tech Vets podcasts? Looking to do 1 or 2 more, hopefully 2 more before the end of the year. Anthony Wilson says, breaking something sometimes is the best way of learning. I broke a customer's computer case as it dropped off my sofa. When they came to collect it, I learned from my mistake and replaced the case. Oh, I agree with you. I mean, it's embarrassing. Everybody makes mistakes. But if you were told, don't put that on the sofa, if it falls, you're going to break it, and then you did it anyway, and then it fell and you broke it, that's a tougher pill to swallow. You understand the difference? You were warned and you ignored it, and you did it anyway, and then exactly what you were warned about happened. It's still a lesson, but it's avoidable. It was unnecessary. Larry Mateo says, I have an i5 Inspiron 7573 and the right hinge broke. I believe it's a couple of strip screws, maybe worse. If I contact you, can you approximate the price? I can't do that kind of a repair because laptops have very specific components that only the manufacturer makes for that specific model. There's no competitor for it. And the manufacturers often won't sell to people unless they're authorized distributors. You pay a fee to be an authorized distributor for a Dell, let's say. So what you end up having to do is finding a broken Dell, something like that, find a donor and strip it of the parts you need. So it's not, maybe somebody on eBay takes apart broken laptops and breaks out the hinges and sells them separately, or maybe it's about the same price to buy a broken laptop of the same make and model and strip it down yourself for that one piece. When you think about how much time that takes, and of course you're assuming you're getting the right component, you might open it up and find other things are broken once you get in there. And then you think, gosh, I could have bought a new machine for what this is costing. And buying the new machine, you get something faster, fresh battery, brighter, clearer screen, more modern, under warranty, and you get it right this instant with no waiting. So I don't do those kinds of laptop repairs. The laptop repairs that I do are relatively simple jobs of upgrades. Hey, I need more storage, or I want to go from mechanical to solid state, or I want to do more RAM. I won't take laptops beyond that. I don't do power jack repairs. I don't do screen replacements. There are people who do. It's not my thing. They're all very, very difficult to work on. They're very easy to break. And laptops from the same manufacturer but are different models literally have very little in common. So you have, if you wanted to work on them, you can imagine you'd need thousands of possible parts and have some sort of system where you could find them when you needed them, because each one is different. Along a model, like if it's a 7570 or something Dell, then all the 7570s of that year will probably have matching parts. But the minute you change years, even to the same model, different parts a lot of times. Or if you change the model, different parts. And if you change the manufacturer, different parts. And when you combine that with how many models each manufacturer makes and how often they update those models, it is a mess. So, depending on what you paid for the laptop, my question for you is, how much do you think that should cost to fix, and how much do you think that laptop is worth if you sold it? Go on eBay, type in the model of laptop and see what they're selling for, and or buy it now. And then compare that to what you think it should cost to fix. It might even be cheaper for you to buy the exact same model of laptop in working condition off of eBay and just move your data over. I mean, there's a lot of different ways you can look at it, but I don't do that. But there are plenty of people who do. Just going to glance through the chat to see if there's other questions I've missed. Any updates with your Amazon issues? None yet. None yet. Everything seems to be okay, but it's something time will tell. PC Fishing wants to see the Xenos case on the bench as the streaming PC. Oh, we will get there. We're going to get there. There's Luke Greenia joining us. Hey, Luke, good to see you. Larry says you can send me just the front cover. I'll pay to return it, and yes, it'll be a free repair. I would even swap front panels with mine. I'm that confident in the repair. I don't know that we have all the pieces. I don't know that you could fabricate or repair the damage to this front panel. And it's not just the front panel, it's also the front umbilical. And that would have to be all removed, all the cable management. Well, I guess I'm going to have to do that anyway, so that you could have that whole front panel and see if you could reattach the mounting points. And even if you did, and even if it looked good, it's probably not going to be as structurally sound. And so when I pack it and ship it back, what happens if those fractured points fracture again? It seems more likely, right? Once you break a bone, it's easier to break that bone again. So I appreciate the offer. I just don't think it's a practical solution to this. Are you going to charge the customer for the packing error? No, of course not. No. Whatever I make from the video, from whatever this video generates, is what I'm going to make on labor, right? So I want to make sure the customer's happy and taken care of, but I can't read the customer's mind, and I don't know what that's going to take, and I don't know what timeline they're on, and I don't know what their budget is. So I have to talk to the customer and find out how they want to proceed. I was kind of going through the chat to see if I saw anything else from them, and I just saw the one comment from them, and I don't know if they're still watching. Master Singleton contributed 99 cents Australian. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Sorry I caught that a little late here. Mortmont's recommending a Fantex case. Well, that's what this is, a Fantex case. There's a lot of options. It's not like there's a shortage of cases. There's just a shortage of this case. Well, there's other cases there's a shortage of, but with regards to this issue, it would be a lot easier if we had another case we could use as a donor for parts, but it's just not an option here. Just looking for any other further comments there from Chavo in the chat room. I don't see him anymore. Rockin' Rob's joined us. Welcome in, Rockin' Rob. I guess I'm going to put my filters back on my microphone since we don't need to hear anything rattling anymore. Status of t-shirts hasn't changed. I don't have any solutions for that just yet. And I haven't heard back from the person I was working with. And it's sort of an ongoing process. I'm trying to find a way that's not so resource intensive to supply the shirts. And there is a shirt place not too far from here. And I have not had time to get over there and talk to them. But I want to go over there, physically go there, show them the shirt and see what they have, if it's something they can do and what they would charge and if that's even feasible. I figure why not? They're right down the street, couldn't hurt to ask. That may lead me to a solution, or it may be just a complete waste of my time accomplishing nothing. But, I don't have somebody else to do this. I have to figure out how to schedule my time, and they're only open during regular business hours. So I'm hoping I have another errand to run that takes me by the place, that I don't have to take a special trip, and I have to remember to do it. So no updates yet. Alvin Shaver with a $2 contribution says, I hope everyone has a safe Halloween. Agreed, yeah. Enjoy your Halloween this year, folks. Chavo's there. He says, I'm watching. Time is not a concern. Money up to $900. Does that sound viable? If you mention the steps necessary for a viable solution, we can take it from there. How about that? Well, I don't think you're anywhere near $900. I'm going to just call you Chavo. Chavo's the owner of the computer. He's in the chat room right now. I think we need to look at some cases and find something you like. You'll probably spend anywhere from $80 to $180 for a case. Once we have that picked out, we can have the case shipped here. Once I have the case, I can dismantle this entirely, move everything over to the new case, box it back up, and ship it back out to you. So I don't think you're going to be in it very much. It's mostly that it's a time issue in that, if you're not in a hurry, most of my customers want everything done yesterday. So I'm in this mindset of go, go, go. If you're not in a rush for it and you're willing to, accept the amount of time it's going to take for, once we decide on a case to order, for that case to arrive here. And once it arrives here, depending on what projects I've got going on, will determine when I can get to it. It could be something I work on late at night that I don't make a video out of, right? Because it's just pulling parts out and moving them over. As far as like the rest of the components, there may be something worth upgrading while we're in there. We might want to increase the RAM or increase the storage. I don't know yet because I haven't dug in that deep, but it looks like, everything is fine. All the internal components are fine. It's the single external component that's the problem. So it's not a $900 repair. No. But instead of a 1-day repair, it's probably going to be 3 or 4 weeks. And then, of course, the shipping back to you. And I'm not worried about the cost of the shipping back to you. I want to take care of you. I don't want to sit here and chastise you or make you feel bad. I feel bad. I feel bad this whole thing happened. I really do. And it was so avoidable. That's what's killing me, But, I'm crying over spilled milk. It's done. But it's just more work for me. And that's fine. This is what I do. I like my job. It is what it is. I'm not too thrilled about a system I built that I was going to send over to Doug Betts, where the motherboard doesn't work once it's in the case, and I've taken it out. Works fine. Put it back in. Doesn't work. There's something, maybe a cold solder joint or something on the board that's bad, and I can't find a new board. And I have to completely dismantle all of that and ship it back to Amazon. And so that's waiting to be done. So I'm at a point now where it's like I need to hire somebody to do some of this because it's becoming a little bit of a burden. However, if time is not an issue, it's no problem. It's only a problem when people are like, I need it tomorrow. And usually with most customers, that's normal. For somebody to say no hurry, it's very rare. So I appreciate that. And I will take care of you. But there's no way it's going to cost you $900. It costs you like maybe $200. That's all. But it would have been free. It would have been free. I would have done this. I still would pay for the shipping back regardless, and it would already be on its way. That's the part that's just killing me. So anyway, we can fix everything. There's nothing that's unfixable. It's just time and money, time and money. That's all. I'll talk to you about it privately. Here's my friend Ron Hillier joins us in the chat room. Hi, Ron. Boy, Mortmont really likes that P500 case. If he's into the RGB in a glass side window, and he wants to spend $150 for a case. It's a great case, I agree, but it's very different from a business style of case. This case has no window, this case has no RGB. So if I were recommending a case, I would recommend one that is just as close to this as I could get it, unless the customer specifically states that having a case window or RGB isn't a problem. Or maybe they even prefer it, right? There's a good chance to upgrade this case into something they might like better. But to find a solid black case, we could go to a, Be Quiet Pure Base, like a 600 or something like that. But then there's no DVD drive option. But we can solve that with a USB DVD drive. So if you're going to have two 3.0 USB ports up front and a drive bay for a DVD drive with no case window, something like I don't know if anything exists, quite frankly. I know we could there are a couple options from Fractal and from Be Quiet without the DVD drive. And then there are some really cheap cases that I wouldn't recommend. And again, those usually don't have two USB 3s. They usually just have one. And I wouldn't recommend that either. So it's going to require a little research, but really what it first requires is asking the customer, What do you think about a glass panel? What do you think about RGB? Is that something you don't mind? Is that something you prefer? Or is that something you absolutely don't want? And how important is that DVD drive? Can you work with it being USB, or do you have to have it internal? And those answers are going to then reflect my suggestions or whatever research I might have to do to accommodate that wish list. That's my job. It's what I do. Mountain biking kid wants to know if I like other cases, like in-win. I get the case the customer wants. Whatever the customer wants. Captain Blinsky contributes $5. Thank you for that. Thank you for supporting the channel. Renderless Games says, send him back a Halloween surprise. You know, I've been known to give people some free upgrades and stuff. If I have something that matches what they need and it fits in there, and throw it in just to say thanks for your business, I do that when it's appropriate, for sure. Chavo, you don't have to say your name. I know who you are. He says, good, time is on our side. I already swallowed the sour experience. I feel upbeat already. You seem more relaxed too. Well, part of my tension was this how you were going to respond, right? I've been through this, and customers don't all respond the way you are. You know, so I feel more relaxed because you're very reasonable, and there's no debate, or there's no you're not being defensive. And I'm really grateful for that, because that would just make this even harder. So I had a lot of concern. I had some anxiety over what this discussion was going to be, and I was kind of like, I wasn't sure if you were watching, but I'm trying to prepare the audience for, you know, again, this is something a hobbyist or an enthusiast doesn't have to deal with. The psychology of having to call a customer, and you got to say it in a way that you're not putting anybody, you're not intending, let me rephrase everything. I'm not intending to put anybody down or make anybody feel bad, but I'm now in a position where I have to figure out how to say it and explain it in a way that is just, these are facts, I don't have any personal feelings in this, and hope that it's going to be accepted in that way, and then the customer's going to say, yes, I totally see what you're saying, and it's no problem. My fear is the customer, especially a customer I haven't talked to very much, is going to come back and say, they're going to be pissed off, all right? And it's not about a fault, it's just pissed off about the situation. So if I seem more relaxed now, it's because that anxiety of what's going to happen next has been alleviated by you being here, and I appreciate that. And I appreciate your response to it. That makes it a lot easier on me. It's a scary conversation to have, knowing that it can be twisted, knowing that the person receiving the message can let their emotion get in the way, because I've dealt with it before with other people, and thankfully that's not you, but we don't know each other that well, so I wasn't quite sure how you were going to respond. So I was like, okay, I'm going to roll the dice on this. I have to, I don't have a choice, and hope everything is amicable, and it appears we're good. So Phew. Like I said earlier, it's really an opportunity to turn these lemons into lemonade. Maybe get a case you like a lot better. Maybe start looking at some computer cases. Go to Amazon, go to Newegg, and send me some emails for cases that you like, and maybe we can use one of those. Or give me an idea of something that you would, if you send me examples of what you like and they're not even available, or for whatever reason we can't use them, at least it puts me on the same page of what I can recommend for your preferences, which at this point I don't know anything. So we'll go through that. But if you can look right now, you can go to Amazon, Newegg, look at different cases. And like I said, this is your opportunity now to do a case upgrade to something that, if you want to, if it means anything to you. Some people, the computer case means nothing, they don't care. Other people are like, hey, since I got to replace it anyway, let's do this, and get a case that's more appealing for you. Cooper Benji LA contributes $5, says, it's Ian. I changed my name here. Everyone, happy Halloween and be safe. All right, well, thanks for the support. Thanks for the contribution. Michael Dane says, how about the Nomad case? I don't know the Nomad case. Frank Jimmy wants to know if I narrowed down my opinions for replacing TeamViewer. Yeah, I'm using UltraViewer, which so far as I can tell is nearly the same in every way, shape, and form. Even how it looks and how it works, there's no learning curve. It's 90%, 80% less in cost, and seems to run, I would say it runs better than TeamViewer. I think there's very little learning curve because it's almost like they're trying to be TeamViewer. You know what I mean? There's Coke and there's Pepsi, and if you take the labels off the cans and you taste test them at room temperature with no ice, they're very, very similar. So this UltraViewer is so close to TeamViewer. There's very little learning curve. It's 80%, more than 80% less cost, and it appears to work better than TeamViewer works. So that's my current replacement. Now, if there's something I learn about UltraViewer that's not good, I'll keep you updated, but I'm pretty much moving all of my TeamViewer clients, uninstalling the TeamViewer client and putting the UltraViewer client on. It just seems like a better company and a better product all the way around, and I think TeamViewer did me a favor. They're going to save me a lot of money and get me a superior product from their competitor. So at the end of the day, I would never have known how good UltraViewer was. I never had any reason to look into it as deeply as I've been now. So TeamViewer just forced me to save 80% of my money and use a superior product. I think it's superior, but decide for yourself. You can go to ultraviewer.net. I have no affiliation with them at all. I'm not getting paid. There's no affiliate link. It's free to download and to use it, completely free. They don't hassle you like TeamViewer does if they suspect this is not free use. TeamViewer is very, very aggressive in their free product and their enforcement of how they define free versus business. They sort of have these hidden rules that you may unknowingly trigger, and they'll lock you out of your machine. So UltraViewer doesn't play that game. So give them a shot, see what you think. It's free. If you don't like it, you uninstall it. It's safe. It's a safe product. And it's way, way cheaper. Ron says to me, Carrie, I got a Pinball Jones. I got a Pinball Jones. Is that like a basketball Jones? Yeah, you got to go to the Starfighters Arcade in Mesa, man. Oh my gosh, you got to go there, Ron. You've got to see it. Photo Ray says he's been using UltraViewer now, but he's been having issues with losing cursor movement now and then. Hoping it's just a glitch. Interesting. I haven't experienced that yet, but TeamViewer wasn't perfect either. I had experienced TeamViewer glitches, and that's just normal part of remote access, I think. But I don't know. Damien Jez with a $10 contribution said, you found $10. I like this game. I want to play more of this one. Thanks, Damien. Render this game said, is that your gaming PC to the left? This PC here is the machine that's broadcasting everything you're seeing to you. This is doing all the heavy lifting of streaming. And when I say heavy lifting, for this computer, my processor usage that's required for me to have multiple cameras and stream out in 1080, broadcasting audio and video live through YouTube, is consuming 2.1% of my CPU. It's 98% of the CPU power is just, got anything for me to do? This would make an excellent gaming machine if I had time for that. It certainly meets all the requirements of playing any current or AAA title out there, but I don't use it for that. But it would easily take that on. Sure. So is it a gaming PC? It isn't, because I don't use it that way. But if I did use it that way, it would totally perform that role, or any other role for that matter. It's you know, it's well endowed with hardware, a lot of RAM, 3070 graphics card, 9900 KS processor. You know, I wasn't messing around. This was my birthday build to myself, and it was around $4,400 to build it. So I just wanted a good, reliable machine that could stream and record locally, and as maybe I go to 4K. I've already gone to 4K, but it sort of had some bad side effects. I might try 4K again, but you know, as I grow, this machine has a lot of room for me to grow in. So that's and since it's on screen, I thought, we'll RGB it up just for looks. It's completely stupid, and if I was doing regular work, I would never have built this like this. This is strictly built to be eye candy, and that's why it's on camera, to get every bit of the money I invested back out onto the screen. But if I wasn't on camera, I wouldn't have any of that RGB on there. Absolutely not. Did you change the GPU in your machine? I thought it had a 3080. I don't think I ever put a 3080 in it. Pretty sure it's a 3070. Pretty sure it's always been a 3070. Yeah, it's a 3070. It's always been that way. I think you can go back to the build and watch me build it. I'm trying to think if I built it with a, I think I built it with a 2080 Ti. I can't remember anymore. The 3080 I had was used in, you know what, it might have had the 3080. It might have. And I needed the 3080 for a different build. I think I used it in the big helicopter case because the RGB matched the helicopter case. And I felt like the 3070 was better in this build. So I think I swapped them. I think that's what happened. It's hard for me to remember all the different parts and where they move around. Like I was trying to find my test video card. I was driving myself crazy live on Friday. I'm like, Mitch, where's my testing video card? Well, I'm pretty sure it's in the Big Beast build, which is way in the back and kind of covered up to keep the dust off of it. And I'm thinking, I'm pretty darn sure I use that little testing graphics card I've got on the Big Beast build, because that high-end Intel processor has no built-in integrated graphics. So I think I left it in there. I'm nearly 100% certain I don't want to take it all back down and open it and look at it because I'm pretty confident that's where I left it. But when Mitch and I get back to work on that, I'm going to be eager to verify that's where it is because it just walked away. But now that, again, this is a problem with when you're dealing with so many different things at the same time. I almost need to start writing things down at this point. Getting older isn't making it any better. I can tell you that. What CPU is in your streaming build? Again, that's on 9900 KS. Elijah Dickens says, Carrie, I want to build with a 10th gen system using a Mugen 5 cooler. It should handle a 10900K. Did I just say that? Feedback, please. Yeah, it'll probably be okay. I think I'd go with the Noctua air cooler myself. But I'm sure it'll be fine. Unless you want to overclock it, stuff like that. You're going to be right at the edge, though. The 10900K with a Mugen 5, you're going to be right at the edge. It's good enough. If you're going to push it really, really hard, it's probably going to run a little bit warmer than I would like, but it'll be okay. James says I missed contributions. Oh, yes, I did. There we go. Thank you, James. Everardo Arredondo contributes $5. And James Prezi contributes $5. Thanks, guys. Appreciate your support. Sorry I missed those. Chavo says, how about I make the case the center of attention, a transparent case with neon lights so everyone visiting will see you in your craftsmanship. It's a lot of work for me. I wouldn't recommend a transparent case because there's this back side of the computer, there's nothing to, I just put my finger in the fan. There's nothing to see on this side. There's no reason to showcase that. Nor is there anything to see up above. So if you were okay with a case window, there's a lot of cases to choose from these days, most of which have case windows. If you require a DVD drive up front, the number of cases that have open bays in the front are significantly reduced, but they're out there. And of course, we need it to fit an ATX, a full ATX size motherboard. So with those three things, with those three requirements, then the concern is what RGB these glass windowed cases are going to have. And nearly all of them are going to have some form of RGB. Now, you can usually turn it off. However, if you don't mind the RGB, or maybe the opposite, maybe you do like the RGB and wouldn't mind having it. As I mentioned, there's a lot of cases to pick from in that scenario. The minute we remove the glass panel, we say, hey, no glass panel, no RGB, 2 USB 3s up front, and a place to put a DVD drive, our selection changes from hundreds of options to maybe a half dozen. They're out there. We just got to hunt them down. Michael Dane says I should dress like Mitch and Mitch should dress like me, and that'll be our Halloween. So I put on a Toto shirt and grow a foot taller? Rick Hubbard said, don't set Windows Update to automatic. I did, and I got Windows 11 when I woke up this morning. Ooh, that's the first I've heard of that. That's a concern. Will this computer play Cyberpunk? Well, if you could get Cyberpunk to run without crashing, yeah, it'll play it easily. Still getting caught up here on some comments. Sarge Tech with a $2 contribution says, I just wanted to say thank you. Well, thank you. Appreciate that, Sarge Tech. Platform shoes is what Polly D says. Yeah. Trust me, that idea has crossed my mind more than once. Ron says, perhaps Selden Bell here in the chat could make a Christmas-oriented animated GIF for the cooler. I don't know what's wrong with the one I got now. Maybe. Kevin Smith asks, when you first started out as a PC technician, did you see yourself doing it for 30 years? That's seriously impressive. Always good doing what you love. Did I see myself doing it for 30 years? Yeah, because what else was I going to do? A lot of people start out as a PC technician and then they move into like server administration. They move up within a corporation, within the IT department, maybe even up to a network operations engineer. Or, you know, you look at somebody like Mike Smith, who started out as a technician building computers and then moved into management in a major corporation. I never wanted to manage people, and I never wanted to do Active Directory or, you know, back in when I first started, it was a lot of Banyan Vines and Novell NetWare and stuff like that. I didn't really have any interest in that. Maybe a mild curiosity, but didn't really pique my interest like Repair did. So there weren't many people, and there still are not many people, that started on what would be considered the ground floor and then just stay there and never move up, which is effectively what I did. The only way I was able to move up was to start my own business. And when I say move up, what I mean by that is take on more responsibility and increase my level of pay without having to change my career. And the only way I would have been able to do that in corporate America would be to change the career from desktop support into network support, network engineering, network architecture, server administration, some form of management to, you know, keep it all together. But all of that results in me not doing this anymore. And this is what I love to do. So I had to figure out, how do I get to do what I want, but still be able to get a higher salary than what that job pays? Because those jobs were considered entry level to a certain extent. There's a level below that, which is phone support or help desk. I wasn't working a help desk, so that was one level below. I was the guy that the help desk sent out that dealt with the trouble tickets and closed the tickets with the help desk. So I wasn't fielding calls from customers. The help desk fields the calls. The help desk then assigns the call to the proper department depending on, is it a phone issue? Is it a network issue? Is it a data issue? Is it my chair is broken? Like you would call the help desk universally. And then they create the appropriate ticket that gets sent to the appropriate department. I was in the department of IT that did the desktop repairs. Or I was the laptop repair person for the entire company, for a couple of companies. For Intel, I was the single and only laptop repair technician for the entire Chandler, Arizona campus of about 5,000 employees at that time. And the only people who had laptops were executives. So that's a pretty stressful situation, knowing that every customer ticket I get is a upper management. And if I upset them in any way, shape, or form, I'm probably not going to have a job. So I had to be on my most professional behavior working with executives. And that worked out really, really well. And then the same is true with Arizona Power Service, it's not Power Service, APS, Arizona. Anyway, APS, one of the largest power providers here in the state. And I was their only laptop technician for the entire state. And that meant, you know, there were times I had to drive out to satellite offices all throughout Arizona, especially during the Windows 95 upgrade, where I had to go out and do it with a couple other people. We took the company van And we did that, I think it was a month-long project, and we'd go to some location to the east, locations to the west, locations to the north, locations to the south, southeast, southwest, northeast, northwest. It was a big project because they had some pretty small satellite offices that may only have 2 or 3 employees in some little city in northwestern Arizona, somewhere like Holbrook or something. And we'd have to take that 3-hour drive, get up there and get that upgrade working for them, that little team there. And then maybe swing over to Flagstaff on the way home, do the same thing, and then back to Phoenix, and then maybe it's down to Tucson or Douglas. Douglas, a little tiny city. But I really liked that responsibility. I liked that I was the only one who did the laptops. If a laptop came in and had to be configured for use, I was the one who unboxed it and prepped it. If a laptop had any issues, I was the only one who would repair those laptops. There was nobody else authorized for the entire company. And both Intel, well, Intel had other people authorized at other campuses, but in Chandler, Arizona, their giant Intel campus there, one laptop repair guy. That was me. Very proud of that. I held that with a badge of honor. And laptop repair wasn't really something I wanted to keep doing. It was great that I was the guy dealing with the executives' technical support, right? That's a very flattering position to be in. It didn't pay me anymore though, but it was very rewarding. When you get a compliment from an executive, it just means more. They liked. I had one executive commented how when I returned the laptop, I folded the cable and tied it just exactly the way it came out of the box when it was new. And they noticed that and thought that was extraordinary attention to detail and made sure that my boss knew that he knew you got a guy here who does a great job and we're impressed. We like it. So that never got old. I love that. Gary Boyd with a $20 Canadian contribution says the life of IT support is always enriching. Everything you think you know is always challenged. It can be, you get too confident and it gets humbling real quick. I will tell you. Yeah, just the minute you start building a confidence up, there'll be something that's going to take you down a notch. And then, it can be very embarrassing when there's people watching that you exuded all this confidence and now you're being, sort of putting action to your words and you're being challenged in front of a group of people that you just, boasted about your experience or something. But yeah, I'm a human being like anybody else. And if the job was that boring, I wouldn't be interested. I've got to continually be challenged and see new puzzles and new situations. That's just ingrained in who I am. It gives me it gives me motivation and purpose. I hate doing the same thing over and over again. Rick Hubbard again with a contribution, £5. He says, it's like you said, Windows 11 is just Windows 10 and pretty close. Second £5, this chat. Thank you, Rick. Yeah, for now, Windows 11 will change and it will become better, but it just came out, It's going to take some time to mature. Michael Dane is recommending a Corsair case. Which one is Michael recommending? 500 IQ 500X. Again, it's similar to the other case that's recommended in that you've got the 3 RGB fans up front. It's a bit wide. It's also over $200. I wouldn't recommend it. I don't see any purpose for that. He doesn't have enough hardware to justify a case that wide, in my opinion. Mo wants to know what pronouns I go by. All of them. Every one of them. Some I can't repeat here. Master Singleton says, yes, the life of facilities management is also challenging, rewarding, and interesting as well. Plus, you get a new challenge every day. I wouldn't know, but I'll take your word for it, right? If that's what you love, that's just it, right? You follow that passion and you just hope the money will somehow figure itself out. That's been always my attitude. The cream rises to the top, and you just have to figure out a way to, if management, if corporations are going to say, as long as you stay in that position, then you're going to hit a wage ceiling that we can't go above. And in order for you to reach a wage above that ceiling, you'll have to change positions. The way around that is being self-employed. Or just accepting that that's the only amount of money, the maximum amount of money you can make in that position, and learn to live within those means if the job is that important to you. But if you want to live to greater means and continue to grow and mature as you get older, then your responsibilities and your liabilities start to grow. Maybe you just have one car, now you've got two cars, and maybe you had a little house, now you need a little bit of a bigger house, or maybe you have children, or you want pets, or and everything that you acquire then requires ongoing maintenance. Whether it's a house, you got to take care of your yard. You've got to, fix taps that are dripping. You've got to deal with hose pipes in the wall that might burst, or electrical issues that might come up, or changing an air filter on an air conditioner, or it goes on and on and on. Painting or replacing carpeting, replacing the floors, fixing damage that occurs accidentally throughout the home from living in it. And the bigger the house is, the more of that you have to deal with. If you have 4 bedrooms, you have 4 bedrooms that can need work. If you have an 8-bedroom house and you have 2 or 3 air conditioners to cool that big house, you've got all those air filters to change. You've got probably a larger property that's going to need to be maintained. It's going to cost more. You may even be in a homeowners association or a gated community, which adds more fees every month. And then if you're not upgrading your career and you're staying at the same wage, how do you pay for all that? Unless you say, okay, I'm living in this modest lifestyle in a small house with a few belongings, but I'm happy that I don't want anything else, and I'm never going to want anything else. Well, so be it. But for me, I would like to step up a little bit, be a little bit more middle class. And to do that as a computer technician, solely as a computer technician, would be nearly impossible without being self-employed. Or being in a relationship with somebody else who's bringing in more money, or coming from a family that's giving you money, or some sort of trust fund or something. But just being self-sufficient, doing it on your own, you'd be hard pressed to make ends meet as just strictly doing what I'm doing. You'd have to get more into network administration or cyber security. Then you could start making a decent wage. Andrew wants to know what I think of Alienware. Well, they're Dell. Dell bought Alienware. But I think you're just better off building a machine yourself. Unless it's a laptop and you want a gaming laptop, I think Alienware is worth considering. But Dell competes with Alienware, even though they own Alienware, with their XPS line. And, Lenovo makes some good gaming laptops too, and so does Razer and a number of other companies that are worth considering. But if it's a desktop, I'd say build it yourself, with no exception. Kurt Daw says, good evening from Newfoundland in Canada. Hi, Kurt. Thanks for joining us. Bill Brulette mentions the Be Quiet Pure Base 600. Yeah, so it's weird that I say things and it's like nobody hears me. Early on, I mentioned that a case that didn't have a case window that would be, for example, an alternative is the Pure Base 600, and I just wonder why sometimes people in the chat repeat back exactly what I said an hour ago. Were they not here? Were they not listening? I don't know. It's a little frustrating for me. But yeah, as I previously mentioned, Pure Base 600 does not have the front bay for a DVD drive, but it would be perhaps a good alternative for a 200R with that one exception. Yeah. Rick Hubbard says, if Carrie was English, he would have been knighted by now for services to the insane. I think the queen might accidentally chop my head off. I'd kneel, they'd bring the sword down and just be like, achoo, whoopsie. That's a nice compliment. I appreciate that. Obviously that wouldn't happen. What's the other thing called? They get the OB HBO, the OB. Oh, I can't think of it. OBE, honorary. What is it? It's not honorary. Something of the British Empire. It's kind of a lower level. Remember they gave them to the Beatles. I think John Lennon refused it or threw it away. Some I don't know. I don't know the politics in England. Duncan says OBE and MBE. Well, I know the BE is British Empire. I don't know what the first letter stands for. Oh, Order of the British Empire. Okay. I don't know what that means. What does that get you? I don't know. You got an OBE. What do you do with it? Is it just a title? Sort of like you can go to Kentucky and apply to become a colonel and you don't have to have any military experience. You can just be, I think the governor can assign you the title of colonel. And then you can use that universally throughout the United States. But the only way a regular citizen with no military experience can have the colonel title is only in the state of Kentucky that can be assigned to you. Like Colonel Sanders, Kentucky Fried Chicken, right? Colonel. There's a whole process to becoming a colonel. It probably involves a donation of some kind. And hey, there you go, you're a colonel now. I don't know what you do with that. I don't know how it benefits you. Maybe it looks good on a resume. I have no idea. David Cribb says the Order of the British Empire, standing for Officer of the Most Excellent Order of the British Empire, and OBE is the second highest ranking Order of the British Empire award. Yeah, it sounded like it was fairly prestigious. I just don't know what you do with it. I don't know. Once you've got it, what does that do for you? What doors does that open? Or is it just a fancy title that in reality offers you no benefit other than bragging rights? Oh, he's already answering. It just opens doors. You get all sorts of nice opportunities, but after that, I'm not sure of the benefits. Yeah, I imagine right out front, everybody's talking about it, right? So it might get some attention, maybe some marketing opportunities, something like that. I don't know. I wouldn't turn it down. Silverwolf says, "Hi, Carrie. I've been watching you as much as I can and finally in the live chat. Well, glad you made it here. Good to see you." Gary Boyd said, "The fact that you were the sole laptop administrator is more of a statement of your personality, not diminishing your skill, but you sold your skill intellectually." I did it however I do it. I don't know what it is, but I was happy in those positions for sure. Bob Shoemaker jumps in and says, "Hello, welcome in, Bob." Okay, any other final questions for me? I think we'll wrap this up, and I'll talk with Chavo in the chat room, Raul, and we'll find out what case we want to go with, and that's what we're going to plan on doing, is changing this case. I don't think Larry. Again, I appreciate the offer to repair the front panel, but it's really bad, and I'm not confident that anything that's fractured and repaired will be as strong as it was, regardless of who's doing the work. It has nothing to do with you or the quality of your work. It's just science. A lot of these things are just not designed for rough treatment. And then when we glue them back together or do whatever we have to do to fix it, it's still not going to be better than it was when it was new in all likelihood. And like these cracks across the top of the case, the plastic is bent and warped. And I'm sure there's a way with a heat gun and everything to try and straighten that out with some glue, but it's just not ideal. Like, I'm squeezing this back into position on the top of this case, and it is fitting back together, but it's still got a big line in it. It's just cheap stuff. It's a cheap plastic. It's a $65 case. It's not a $600 case. Now, if it was a $600 case, we'd talk. Master Singleton's recommending a Cooler Master N400 case. Yeah, so I think I've worked on these cases before. That's a good recommendation. Yeah, that's a real good recommendation. Thank you for that. So that's got not only the two front USBs, it's also got the two front USB 3s and two USB 2s up front. No case window. It has the bays for the DVD drive. No RGB. It doesn't appear to be built as well, but like the gauge of metal looks thinner, but it may not be. It may be confusing this with a different case, but I'm pretty sure I did a build in one of those. And I didn't like that the USB ports were in the middle. I wish they were at the top, because usually, from my experience, my customers put stuff on top of the case and plug it in. So if your USBs are down here, oftentimes the thing they're plugging in, like if it's a hard drive or something, it's dangling. So I don't like the location of where they put those USB ports, but it's really, really close to what this has. I don't know why they have a 3.5-inch drive bay there. That's just, I don't know what anybody would use that for. Maybe a memory card reader. But again, you'd plug that into USB, but because of where the USBs are, when you plug your memory card reader in, it's just going to hang off of the cable, which is not ideal. But it's not the worst. I mean, that'll be for Raul to consider if he wants to live with that. I wouldn't want to live with that location of USB ports. If they would have moved those to the top, they'd have themselves a really good $200 competitor there. So, good suggestion, with that consideration. So we'll have to follow up on this with what case the customer decides to go with. I don't know yet. I don't even know what I'm going to recommend until I talk to the customer about what they want, right? Or what they absolutely don't want. That's also important to know. Like if they absolutely don't want RGB or they absolutely don't want a case window. These are important bits of information that are going to determine what options are available, and then to pick from those. And then once that's been decided, I'll come back and we'll follow this up with the rebuild. Michael Dane's recommending a Corsair 600T. So the 600T is very similar to Mitch's, we call it the Stormtrooper build. It's very, very similar in a lot of ways to the Be Quiet Pure Base 600. It's fat. It's got like a knob on top. It's not bad. You know, if it didn't have the stupid knob on top that, I forget what that controls. It is a heavy case though. I mean, it'll cost more to ship a 600T, but it's pretty much the same weight and size as a Pure Base 600. And that's my concern, is the weight. So I'm afraid that's just going to be too heavy. And I really don't like that knob on top. But, you know, I appreciate all the suggestions. And at the end of the day, it's not my decision to make. What about a RAID Max PC case? They're generally not built as well. However, again, it's really up to what the customer wants. When I say not built as well, in my experience, the RAID Max cases have a thinner gauge of metal where they're like this top, where there's holes, I can kind of bend it, but where there isn't holes, this case doesn't bend. I can stand on this case. I feel like if I stood on a RAID Max case, it would collapse under me. But that just may be my limited experience with certain models. Maybe they make more sturdy RAID Max cases. I don't know. Rick Hubbard is turning in for the night. All right, Rick. Well, thanks for hanging out with us. Thanks for your contributions as always. Again, final tech questions. This is the time to ask. I'll do my best to provide answers for you. And then we'll wrap it up for tonight. Tomorrow, again, we'll be live at 1 o'clock, as always, on every Friday. And Mitch and I will be doing something. I'm not quite sure what. I did get the extension cables in for the HTBC power connectors. So we might be able to button that up, maybe. It's not much work. I have a couple of computers I need to build. Well, 3, not a couple. I have another one I have to finish up. I have one I have to completely disassemble because of the bad motherboard. And we still have the big beast build to do, though I still don't have that 3090 graphics card. So I'm not sure if we'll do that tomorrow or not. Still on the fence. Not sure what's going to happen, but we will be live with a video. I just can't tell you what, because I don't know yet. But at 1 o'clock Pacific time tomorrow, just like we do every Friday. And there's Mitch in the chat room right there. He says, I'll be there. Right on, Mitch. I hope so. It's hard to be in the video if you stay home, if you're not here. Won't be the same. AJ says he just dropped in from watching us from Trinidad and Tobago. He says, I always follow you. Right on, AJ. Thanks for hanging out with us. Terry Zanders says, hey, Carrie, glad I caught you live. I hope to see you and Mitch tonight. Last time from Indiana. Mitch is tomorrow afternoon. Yeah, Mitch and I tomorrow at 1 o'clock Pacific time. Dress up as Marty and Doc Brown. Did that last year. Was it last year or the year before? You search my channel for the word Halloween. I think there's a couple of And that's already on there. Lawn Dog says, Carrie, I spent almost 2 months researching computer cases, and I do not like having, I don't like not having 5¼ inch bays. But that seems to be the style these days, along with lighting effects. I'm very disappointed in options. Yeah, well, there are options, but there are few to choose from, unless you want that case window and the RGB lighting, in which case, you know, lots and lots and lots to choose from. Dresses Calvin and Hobbes. I think that would be an extraordinarily old reference that a lot of people wouldn't get. So yeah, I'd rather do something, you know, more current than something from the 1990s. And Michael Dane says, yeah, 1 o'clock Pacific time is 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. That's correct. It's a 3-hour time difference between Pacific time and Eastern time until about the first week in November, I think. And I think daylight saving time takes effect. And Bill Brulette is sharing a link to the Pure Base 600 that does have the front. It does have 2 front 5¼ So that's about the closest. Does it have the 2 front USB 3s? It should. Yeah, yeah. That is a really close to the 200R. It's going to have the good build quality. You know, you're looking at about $80. It's right in the same price range. No case window, no RGB. I was thinking it did not have the front ports, but it looks like, again, I'm kind of looking through these pictures. It looks like it does have the 2 5¼ inch bays. I'd swear the 600s I was working with didn't have them, so maybe they've got it 2 different ways. Not sure on that. I appreciate that suggestion. That's a really good suggestion. Frank Jimmy said we could be the Mandalorian and Baby Yoda. That would have been great if this was last year. Yeah. Everything this year is Squid Game. And then if we dressed up like that, you'd never really know for sure if it was Mitch and I behind those masks. You'd never know. You'd hire a couple people to go up there and we'll just voice it over. Joshua says November 7th is the time change. Yeah, so I don't, is it the 7th or is it the 8th? Isn't it technically the 8th, midnight of the 8th? Yeah, midnight of the 8th. 11:59 p.m. of the 7th, I think, is still, the time doesn't change until the clock flips over to November 8th. If I'm not mistaken, could be wrong. We don't move our clocks in Arizona. Our clocks never, ever move. So we don't move them forward, we don't move them back, and it's hard for me to remember. And the date's not always the same. So it's the 7th at 2 a.m. Eastern. There you go. Anyway, when we do broadcasts after the 7th, we'll be sure to include the accommodation for the time, because it won't be on, like right now, Arizona's on the same time as California. So I reference Pacific time because it's more commonly known. But when California rolls back their clock 1 hour, we will not. And when the East Coast rolls back their clock an hour, right? You always fall back 1 hour and you spring forward 1 hour in the spring. Arizona stays the same. So right now, Arizona and California are on the same time. After the falling back an hour on November 7th, then California, 1 o'clock here will be noon in California. California and Eastern always stay 3 hours apart, always. When California rolls back an hour, so does the Eastern time zone and the Central. When Arizona doesn't roll back the clock, what that means is there is a 3 hour time difference between Arizona and the East Coast half of the year, and a 2 hour time difference between the East Coast the other half of the year. And for half of the year, we're on the same time as Pacific time, same as California, but for half of the year, we're an hour ahead of Pacific time. It gets a little complicated, but basically, Arizona maintains a -7 hours from Greenwich Mean Time, GMT, all year round. It never changes. So whatever Greenwich Mean Time is, -7 will always be the time in Phoenix. Now there is an upper eastern corner of Arizona that's on the New Mexico time for some reason, right up in the Holbrook area, right up in there. There's a little like Indian reservation that honors they do roll back their clocks, but it's just a little piece of Arizona. I'm not sure why that is. AC's Drafting contributes $50. Hey, thank you, AC. Appreciate that very much. Where did you get your Back to the Future picture? I don't think it's a picture. I think it's supposed to be a lamp. I think it's justgeek.us if I'm not mistaken. Let's see if I can find it. Is it justgeek.us? No, that's not it. Maybe I'll just type in just geek and I'll type BTTF for Back to the Future. us.justgeek.com. And they have a UK store and a USA store. And this is a little lamp. It's not really a lamp. I don't know why they call it a lamp. But here's a link for you if you want to buy. I don't have an affiliate with them. I don't make any money, but there it is. Michael Dane says, Carrie, you and Mitch could dress as Rocky and Bullwinkle or Pinky and the Brain. We could also dress as Lenny and Squiggy. I mean, I'd rather not use references from 2 or 3 decades ago or 4 decades ago. If I'm going to do something in a Halloween spirit, it has to be iconic, like Bob Ross, or it's got to be current, like when we did Rick and Morty. That's not so current anymore. Last year would have been Mandalorian. This year is all Squid Game. I don't really see a whole lot of options. You know, for a while there it was, Slender Man was always, was a thing for a while. And sometimes movies or media create a cultural phenomenon, and then that Halloween, everybody wants to be, honoring that or connected to that. Something that's more or less universally known culturally for being a hot topic. But I don't really sense much of that this year. In fact, before Squid Game, I had nothing. So now there's just Squid Game as far as I can come up with, but it's not important. Michael says we could do James Bond again. It just feels played out. Saucy Poggin, that's a great name. Carrie, have you ever encountered a situation where a CMOS battery is causing issues, but not obviously resetting time? Yeah, I've had systems that won't turn on if the battery's dead. I've got a video here fixing a dead computer, and it's a short video because I demonstrate the computer won't turn on, and I think it's an unedited video. It's just me filming on one take. I pop the CR2032 battery off the board, pop a new one in, system boots up and works. I posted that video about 8 years ago, I think, 6 years ago. Okay, well, everything's kind of slowed down in the chat. I'm going to take that as a hint to wrap things up. So I appreciate you guys hanging out with me today, and thanks to Chavo there in the chat room for sending the computer back so we can see what's going on here. And once I have that discussion with him, we'll get a case ordered. When the case arrives, we'll pick this up for part 2. We get it all fixed up, send it back to him, and he should be good to go, hopefully for a good long time. So thanks for hanging out with me, and I'm happy to share this experience with you. I like to do everything live, unscripted, in one take, and let it be what it's going to be. And sometimes that can be embarrassing for me when something obvious eludes me. But that's the real life that you can experience as a computer technician. You're not always going to nail everything right the first time and make no mistakes and see everything clearly immediately. Just most people don't have the guts to turn a camera on and do it live. I don't mind. I don't mind. It's just the reality of it. There's nothing to be ashamed of by getting an honest reaction to something you weren't expecting, and to make some diagnostic errors. It's part of the process of diagnosing. People shouldn't beat themselves up over that. If so, we probably don't want to go into this line of work. You've got to be willing to accept being wrong and to move on and not be embarrassed by it. It's just part of the diagnostic process. And in most cases, nobody's going to know anyway, unless you're foolish enough to broadcast it live on YouTube around the world, which, of course, you'd have to be insane to do that, to take all the abuse from criticisms of people who do nothing and want to criticize how you do anything. However, and I'm not saying that's you, I'm just saying that you will experience that if you do what I do. And it's worth it to put up with those types of people in order to show reality and say, this is really what it's like. And you're probably, if you go into this line of work, this is what you can expect. And it's normal. It's absolutely normal. Obviously, if you are making more mistakes and taking longer to get things done, an employer is probably not going to keep you very long, right? So you're doing okay if you have employment and you're keeping busy and there's no performance critiques or anything. And as long as you're keeping up with everybody else, if you're, sort of measuring the same productivity rate, then you're making the same number of errors everybody else is. And it's when you fall markedly down below that, like if you're a little below, it's usually not a problem. But if you're way down low and you stay down month after month and your productivity is not that of your peers, you're probably not going to stay in that position. So after 30 years, for somebody like me to be in this business kind of proves that, yes, I'm going to make mistakes. Yes, my diagnosis sometimes goes down the wrong path, but eventually I get there. And it happens, it's part of the process. And if you want to do this kind of work, you should really consider before you criticize anybody who's doing it, trying it yourself and putting it on a live, unedited, unscripted video that's one take. And I think you'll have a lot more courtesy and respect for the people who do it. But anyway, I guess I'm going to shut this off. And I think it's an easy fix. Like I said, I think we just have to, it's a formality to move the parts. We just got to know where to move them to. So anyway, Friday, tomorrow, 1 o'clock, join Mitch and myself. I hope you'll be here as we continue another build, maybe the Big Beast build, maybe we'll go back to the HTPC, maybe we do a little of both. I'm not sure. Maybe we'll do something entirely different. It's all live and unscripted, so you just got to be there to see what happens. Thank you guys so much for watching. Thanks everybody for the contributions, AC's Drafting and Madi UL and Rick Hubbard and all the other names I can't think of right now. I so appreciate your supporting the channel here. I'll see y'all tomorrow at 1 o'clock. And oh, there's Tony Wallow in the chat. Thank you, Tony. And Rock and Rob, everybody else. Thank you so much. And I hope you'll tune in tomorrow at 1 o'clock Pacific time, as we do every single Friday at 1 o'clock Pacific time. Until then, bye for now.